That may have been a utility one, though, rather than a town DPW one, because I think they were replacing some poles or wires, something. But still, sometimes, on occasion, I see things like that, and so does the general public. It's like, is it really necessary?
Okay, that's a good question. First of all, the authority for details is granted by town bylaw to the chief of police to use his authority to make a determination in the interest of public safety if and when a detail is necessary for the opening of a road, a trench in a road, or some kind of a work that impedes traffic on the road. And that's supported by any number of case law giving the chief the authority to act in the interest of public safety. However, last year, sat down with the union and Dave, and work with Dave on that. We come up with a protocol that interpreted in the bylaw and it was in the best interest of the public safety on how to control when and where a detail would be required. Certainly a lot of it is discretionary, but what we determined, and we actually working with some of the frequent flyers like Reading Light, your Verizon and cable companies, that they notify us 24 hours in advance of where they're going to be working and what's the type of work and the duration of the work. So if it's on a primary or a secondary road like Chestnut Street or Haverhill Street or Lowell Road or Main Street, in all likelihood, unless they're off the road significantly, you'll see some kind of a detail for obvious reasons.
No-brainers, right?
When it comes down to your smaller secondary roads in the community, that's a case-by-case assessment. It's supposed to be a case-by-case assessment, and I would hope that the vast majority of those instances do not require a detail. I'm sure a couple slip through the cracks now and then, but what they do is they go out there and they look at how long is a road going to be blocked for any significant period of time. And I think in the case of your neighborhood, Steve, that utility had been there the week before, and a cruiser was respawning up there, and the car actually got trapped in there, and they had to spend some time to get that truck out of the way and so on and so forth. So that utility came back, and I believe it was the same thing. They were going to block the road. There was no notification by the utility that they were coming back there, so they could have that opportunity to work with the utility on setting up how they would set up on that particular road. And so there was a determination made by the sergeant on duty that that road was going to be blocked for a significant period of time, and they felt that in the interest of public safety, that the residents should have a cop there to direct them around that area, in and around that area. And I can't be more specific than that, but I do have some recollection.
I in front of Michael's house too. I mean,
Yeah.
I see the detail offices
Yeah,
recently because they're working up there.
it doesn't happen often. If it's tree work, for example, we've had 3 significant accidents in this community. The 1 fatality, and 2 people were hit with branches coming from tree work. And so in many instances, if there's tree work on for example, Damon and Gould Street, I recall driving by there one day, so there's a cop directing traffic there. But what they were doing is they were stopping as they were ready to drop a limb. They would stop any vehicles coming in there, and that was actually requested by Ash Point Tree Company that they have that cop there. So sometimes it looks odd that you may see a cop there. Sometimes it is odd and it shouldn't happen, to be quite honest with you. But in the vast majority of the cases, people our officers use common sense and will not force the service provider or a utility to do a detail. But it does happen on occasion, sometimes legitimate and sometimes it slips through the cracks. But we do have a policy in place for that.
Mr. Jones.
Which page? Page 7. We received notification that we did receive we did receive that funding. It came in late. The state was late in providing the. Yeah, no, it's still hanging in there. We're last year we used it to sign a 3-year lease with Connect City, and that's that mass telephone notification system that the town has, and that was through a police grant. And this year here we're refocusing back on the drug problem somewhat too. Mm-hmm. It's specific reasons, yeah. Yes, yeah, the asset forfeiture program, we receive, if we participate in a drug investigation that culminates in arrest and seizure of property through working with the district attorney's office, state police, or with the federal government, and we generally work 90% of the time with the federal government because they give you a better deal. We receive a split based upon the time and effort that our agency committed to that investigation, and that is absolutely controlled by state law. It's in the control of finance and the police department, and it can be used specifically for drug enforcement, for purchasing equipment that's relative to drug enforcement, and for education efforts that are specific to drug enforcement. So it's absolutely tightly controlled by law.
Cover investigative time and overtime and things like that?
It can, and we have used it for that kind of stuff in the past. Right now, there's a very limited amount of money in it. I think it's about $7,000 in there. We have a lot of pending cases out there that could have a significant impact on our ability to fund efforts in the drug enforcement area in the future.
Last question.
No.
It's 4.9 and 10 sheet. Item 6, we hire a sergeant inspector,
Yes.
and then carry it over to 9. That's something with an alternate funding source.
Yeah, it's, I've had a philosophical discussion with Mr. Valukunis regarding if in fact we are the benefit of significant funding from the feds on several of these cases that we've been working on with the DEA. It would be my goal as chief to fund a side of the detective's position. Detectives perform significantly critical tasks. They're dealing with sensitive information at a much more frequent base than the average law enforcement officer. Their skill sets are heightened in the area of interrogation, investigation, evidence gathering, and so on and so forth. And they're also, they're at a more high risk for putting themselves in line for liability. So it doesn't make any sense to have people in those critical positions unsupervised. And right now, we had a sergeant detective for a number of years. Hank Pennell was one, Lieutenant Hayes was another. When he was a sergeant, detective before he retired. Yeah, yeah. And then somewhere along the line, that position just wasn't carried through. Yeah, we would come out of those asset forfeiture funds, yes. I'm not, I think if and I can't give you a specific figure because it's all up in the air, and a forfeiture has to go to court. It's like it's a civil law, it's a civil suit against a piece of property. And so there'd be like a town of North Reading versus a 1985 Cadillac. And that goes before the court, and the court says, okay, you can have that Cadillac, or cash funds, or a house, or whatever, and you put it on the market and sell it. And we have a number of those cases that are pending with the DEA, and that rises to a significant level. I feel confident that we will be able to pick that up for several years, and then we'd have to revisit that through our budget or make a decision to handle it a different way.
So we'll rely on the
Yep.
I think it's a ways off.
Get lost, looking at something
Charles,
about the sergeant thing.
yeah, I guess you can go ahead. I was gonna just say the concern that I have associated with things like that is that, like a lot of these federal grants, when we brought and expanded the force, and then 2 years later it's gone, and all of a sudden we're scrambling to cover that cost. So, you know, if not that this isn't a bad idea, but if there's no guarantee of the
No.
future of a revenue flow to support that cost.
No, and we've actually sat down and talked about that, you know, what would be the duration, what would happen afterwards.
Additional cost between a patrolman and or a detective is additional stipend to be a detective, and a sergeant is, are you talking an additional stipend above the sergeant's salary to be a detective sergeant?
It would be, right now, detectives are compensated at 4.75% higher than their uniformed peer.
Right, and so that would follow through then as far
Yeah,
as the
so
sergeant
it'd be
level
the
too.
difference plus 4.75%.
Joe?
Chief, thank you. I just want to be clear on this. First of all, I want to say I'm in favor of this, because I think any department as busy as we are in our size, I don't know of one that does not have a brass back there, whether it be a lieutenant or a sergeant. My question is this adding another sergeant to the department, or taking a sergeant you have and moving
No,
it back?
it will be adding, because right now we have one sergeant per shift. The Board of Selectmen actually approved that position, probably 1997, when the 4-and-4 agreement was put into effect. That was part of the 4-and-4 package, was to recreate the position of sergeant detective, which would have created 7 sergeants.
Okay, so would be adding another person to the department, and then making, you see what my question is, Chief?
Yeah.
Are we adding another person, or are we taking a person who's there and making them a sergeant? Because if that's the case, there's no benefit involved,
No,
because the benefit's paid.
It wouldn't expand out the number of detectives we have. We'd maintain 3 detectives. One will become a sergeant detective.
Oh, so then the benefit question is already being paid, because we're not adding
You know,
a
we
person.
wouldn't be adding personnel
Okay.
unless there was another influence like
Now
62.
you've confused me.
Yeah, it's
'Cause
not
I
adding a
would interpret
person,
it
no.
as
I
an
didn't think it
additional
was.
employee. That's not the case.
No.
It's a stipend associated with a particular employee.
It's a promotion.
I wanted to get that clear.
Fine. All right,
Speaking of the federal grants and things, the exposure of the Cops Fest issue that's been out there. Any enlightenment on that particular situation, how we,
question from the road.
It's me. Our total exposure is about 152,000. And we communicated with the Department of Justice that, the town was unwilling to come up with those monies and write a check. And we'd be willing to enter into negotiations with them relative to either, providing some additional in-kind services, or having some type of payment plan, but the theory that we're just simply gonna write a check for under $50,000, we're not gonna do, we're unwilling to do that. And I've asked them to contact me relative to negotiation, if that's their desire, and I have not heard back from them on that.
but as far as our exposure, it's there and it's real.
It's there and it's real. It's real. My thought, though, is that it's not something that will immediately come up. It'll be something that, as you know, because it's involving the federal government, I'm sure it will take some time to resolve. But really, the ball is in their court at this stage. We've communicated with them what our thoughts are.
And they've finished their audit work on that, on this project, so they're not asking us for any more information, so now, like Greg says, it is a.
They're now aware of the fact that we have a budget cycle, and as a result of having a budget cycle, we can't at any random point in the year just simply write them a check out of surplus funds. And initially, they were not necessarily privy to those facts.
should be done at some point.